Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Welcome to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television, Channel 14. Thanks for watching. We're downtown Hays at the corner of 9th and 4th Street and offering an opportunity for you to see a part of history today. And we're talking with various members of the community about the Kroger building, the Opera House, the Budweiser location, you name it. It's been several different things throughout the years downtown Hays, right on the corner here of 9th Street. And joining us is from the Hays Public Library, former director of the Kansas Room, Mary Thompson, who is also the author of Hays in the 30s. And in a future program on our Community Connection, we're going to get into a little bit more depth with Mary about her book and about the research that went into Hays in the 30s, which, by the way, is available, of course, at the Hays Public Library. But we asked Mary to come on and join us today as we're kind of out in front of the building and see if we can find out what a proper name for the building might be, and also some of the research that she's been able to find out about the building. Mary first of all, what should we be calling this building?
Well, I used to give history tours way back, you may remember, years and years ago, and I always referred to it as the Kroger building, but it's been known as the Opera House because of part of its history. So either one, I mean, you use whatever historic names we have. But it was built by the Kroger brothers.
By the Kroger brothers. In what year?
1878. Henry and Fred Kruger came, and they had it built. I mean, they didn't personally, they had it built. It's an unusual architecture, which someone else is going to discuss with you, which is not my thing. But the size of it alone, I mean, we're looking back here, it's huge compared to the other buildings that would have been downtown. It was a dry goods store, kind of, you know, all general goods type of thing. And they built the second floor with intentions to have groups, theatrical groups, music groups, because there weren't a lot of venues in Hays to have that. And that's where the Opera House name kind of came up. I don't think it was ever referred to as the Opera House particularly during their time period. But you know, we're on this train track that we all heard. And groups, just like they are now when we do things out at Fort Hays, if you can catch a group traveling between Kansas City and Denver giving theatrical groups, you get them a lot cheaper. And so that's what they would do. They would come here in between, you know, stops, and we would get some, you know, traveling big name for that time period groups, and they would give musicals, little plays, not any great productions with great sets and that sort of thing. And so that's why it became known as the Opera House. One of the courthouses burned down in 1896, and while it was being rebuilt, the county commission met there in the building. And so it was a multi-use building. In 1909, it was bought by the Essex Club, which was a men's club. It has a different connotation now than back then. It was a men's group that was a precursor of groups like the Rotary or the Kiwanis or something. That they also was a social club, and they would meet, and there was a billiard room, or you know, and they'd play, but they also did good things around the community. They were not just a frivolous group. They were the men's counterpart to the Saturday Afternoon Club, the women's group that founded the library. So you know, it was that kind of deal. And they had it until 1922 when it was bought by Carl Wolf. And he had a hardware type store, and so it became once again kind of a dry goods hardware store, but it was the Midwest Tobacco and Candy and Tobacco, I guess, company. And it actually stayed in that family. The Wolf family, his son worked as well in there, and they actually lived in the building. The Wolf family did. So they sold out to their Carl Wolf's son-in-law, who was E.J. Dreiling. And so it became in the Dreiling family, and it stayed in the Dreiling family until the end.
What did E.J. do with it?
Same thing.
Okay, continued the Budweiser franchise, well,
and it built into more of the beverage. But it was still called Midwest Candy and Tobacco for a long, long time.
How many parts of the building are there?
Well, there's evidently 3 floors and a somewhat of a basement. I'm not sure what the basement was, if originally it was storage type things. The 3rd floor also was used in various ways at various times for group meetings, and at one point I think there's a newspaper article says the city band met up there to rehearse and things like that.
And one of the parts of the building that was added on later is on the south side, right, where they had the big double doors for the trucks. And
yeah, and that was when the whole warehouse aspect of the building.
But otherwise, the portions that we see prior to that are all the original structure there.
Right, and you know, they have some, I mean, it's just really a pretty building. This isn't the best view of it right now, but you can find earlier photographs and things that...
And again, rather unusual that the Kroger brothers, first of all, would make that kind of an investment at that particular time, but obviously found a need.
Right, and they were from back east, as you know, most people were, but I mean, truly on the East Coast, and they worked their way out here and discovered Hayes and decided to stay for a while. And they were involved, I think one or both of them served on commissions and things. They were involved with the community.
Mary Ann Thompson, former director of the Kansas Room at the Hayes Public Library and author of Hayes in the 30s, our guest on our Community Connection. Coming up, we'll visit with members of the Liberty Group. We'll also talk to Hayes City Commissioner Henry Schwaller and also the Director of Building Inspections for the City of Hayes, Jesse Rohr. That's ahead. Stay with us on our Community Connection from Eagle Community Television.
Eagle has more of what you watch in HD. Eagle has just added more than a dozen new HD channels, including VH1, CMT, Spike, Comedy Central, AMC, MSNBC, Turner Classic Movies, and NASA TV. Now you can watch all your favorite channels in crystal clear, high definition. As always, Eagle is the home of free HD. For information on this Eagle Advantage, visit eaglecom.net or call 877-61-EAGLE today.
Welcome back to our Community Connection as we visit about the Kroger building, as we're determining from Mary Ann Thompson in our previous segment that perhaps is the proper name of the building, but you can still call it the Opera House, I think. We're at the corner of 9th Street at the location of the Opera House. Joining us is Hayes City Commissioner Henry Schwaller, former president of the Kansas Arts Council and current board member of the Hayes Arts Council, and also now president of the Kansas Citizens for the Arts. So we're seeing that Henry's still very much involved in not only the community, but in his passion for the arts as well. And part of, I guess, our discussion today could include the arts, since this building is in itself kind of a tribute to the arts and artistry of the time, Henry.
Yes, absolutely. Mary Ann described it very beautifully, that this was a quite unusual building, not only in its design, and one of your other guests will talk about that as well, and its size, but it really is a testament to the community that the building lasted as long as it did. And as a city commissioner, of course, it breaks my heart that we will lose this treasure. But the problem that we face is the cost of repairing the building exceeds any amount that we could possibly raise. And then the use of the building, once if it were to be restored, the use of it would never ever justify making such an expense. The needs in the community are much greater than we could possibly justify spending on this building.
Henry, we've seen the various portions of the building. Something that struck you when we were able to get kind of an inside tour, if you will, thanks to Kelli Hansen from the Liberty Group, were the columns and the structure of the roof on the central floor.
Yeah, the main floor is very dramatic, as you described, and as your viewers will see. The labor of love in crafting that wooden ceiling and the columns that support the second floor are really very beautiful, very austere, but still quite beautiful, and fits in with kind of a Kansas tradition. So it was truly an amazing store, probably to have shopped in back then.
Of course, Henry, with your long-time involvement and of course, history of the city of Hayes, you can tell us a little bit more about the building itself.
Well, from a family perspective, my great-grandfather, Henry, Henry and his father started Schwaller Lumber Company down the block here. My great-grandfather was a charter member of the Essex Club, and it came around the time that he and his wife May were married, and I'd always understood that it was also a place they could dine, but I guess from Mary Ann's description it probably was not. But I imagine that his new wife chided him and encouraged him to be part of the community. He was pretty business focused. So he was a member of the Essex Club until its demise, and in fact then he died shortly thereafter. So it is very much a part of the community, whether we bought goods that came from it, and all of us did, even in our generation. The other thing about Mr. Dreiling, E.J. Dreiling, that's very important, is that he was our state representative in Topeka. And Norbert Dreiling recruited him, and he served our community in Topeka for many years.
Matter of fact, as we were touring, Henry pointed to one of the walls and said, there's some sheetrock that came from Schwaller Lumber Company.
That's right. As the building has been slowly dismantled inside, Kelli Hansen has brought me some receipts from C. Schwaller and Sons Lumber, and from time to time as they remodeled upstairs, they would buy things and we would deliver them. So, yeah, that's right.
One thing that stuck out in your mind was that ticket for the creamery, right?
Yes, because people lived here, and as most people from that generation were, including my family, they were all pack rats. And so we have a pretty great documentation and paper trail of what they ate, when they bought it, who they shopped with, and things like that. So the folks that lived in the building in the 20s and 30s accumulated a lot of receipts from the accounts that they had across town. It's pretty incredible.
Well, I know, Henry, the Hayes City Commission has been involved in the building and working with the Liberty Group and such, but as you said, there were some roadblocks into keeping the building or restoring the building.
When I was first elected in 1999, the city had contemplated for a number of years acquiring the building and restoring it. But the two stumbling blocks were that it was owned by a family, and they were reluctant to sell. The Dreilings loved the building. They didn't know really what they wanted to do with it, but they were hesitant to sell it. The other problem is that we knew even at that time it would take $3 million. Again, this is in 1999, so some time ago, to at least make the building structurally sound. And we had no access to $3 million. I mean, we were trying to build a pool, we were trying to do other things to enhance the quality of life for more people. We looked into the availability of federal transportation dollars, maybe something historical since this was on a railroad corridor. Those funds simply were not available. And so again, back then, which is not that long ago to us, but to some it might be, there really were not a lot of options. We were thrilled when Liberty Group acquired the building and received a federal grant. The problem was it was just not sufficient. And the amount of investment that they made in downtown, while significant, has been much more beneficial to the city. And we understand their dilemma. So it's with great reluctance that we allowed for the demolition of the property. But that, of course, came with constituent complaints. I have received emails and calls from individuals who live down here or have a historical connection to the building, and they were concerned about the structural condition of the building, and it has deteriorated significantly. So that's really was the impetus. Certainly Jesse Rohr with the city, and he'll speak with you later, was monitoring it, but constituent complaints is what led to this event today.
Well, Henry, we thank you as always for your service on the City Commission. Thanks for your insights in the history on what is the Kroger building, if you will, by many other names throughout its history in the city of Hayes. Our community connection will continue as we visit about more of the history and some of the architecture involved and the work of the Liberty Group coming up. This is Community Connection from Eagle Community Television.
I've had it. No more of this business. This is the last straw. Dude, you're out of here. You're costing me too much money. You don't work when you're supposed to, and you're cramping my style. It's time you got out of here. Seriously, I'm ditching you. I'm switching to Eagle!
Ditch the dish and get $200. Call Eagle Communications today at 877-61-EAGLE.
Welcome back to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our producer, Jeff DeRaw. Today we're visiting with Liberty Group member Kelli Hansen, who is actually the local representative of the Liberty Group, Just a little background on the group itself first, if you would, Kelly.
Sure. Liberty Group was actually formed in 1999 in an effort to start acquiring properties downtown here in Hayes and start acquiring them to bring about sort of a renaissance or redevelopment of the area. As most people know, downtowns are typically the heart of the, the retail and also the community. So over time, obviously, people have, kind of sprawled out from the downtown area and developed other areas, but we wanted to bring about kind of a change and a resurgence in the downtown area.
Kelly, in observing the work that's been previously done downtown by the Liberty Group, I don't think there's a single individual who would say, my goodness, what an improvement, what a beautiful addition to downtown that the Liberty Group has able to do in the projects they've already done.
Great, thank you. Yes, each project has kind of been a challenge all in itself. When you take an old building and you try and restore it and go back to what it used to be, or try and incorporate that into, some usable building, there's always challenges. Sometimes they come with, some architecture that lends to the projects. Other times, you have to recreate something that at one time was there. So with the help of a lot of historic preservations, design professionals, stuff like that, we were able to accomplish a lot of what's been done on Main Street.
At this particular juncture here in late summer, Kelly, what's underway now as far as projects with the Liberty Group?
We recently just finished the exterior facades of what we consider the Oddfellows block. That was a very ambitious project because we were used to kind of breaking off buildings one at a time. This one actually, because of the way it's set there, there's actually 4 different storefronts, 3 of them with second floors, which required just an enormous amount of windows and masonry repair and 4 roofs. So you can actually take the expense of restoring one building and kind of quadruple that in order to get that one accomplished. So that one was a big goal for us to get done because it's kind of the entrance to the district. So we're very happy with how that one's progressed and turned out.
And speaking of the district, I'm glad you mentioned that because of the Chestnut Street designation of the entire area. The Liberty Group kind of played a part in that.
When it first started, we were more interested in a couple of the very historic buildings. Obviously, the Philip Hardware building was one of the buildings that we restored. That one had already been listed on the National Register of Historic Places. When we acquired the Opera House or Kruger building back in 2001, that was kind of one of our strategies in order to try and access some grant funding, some federal funds. We had heard, over the past years, the estimates that it would require to restore that. So we knew that there would have to be some additional funding brought in. So one of the things obviously we did, we wrote the nomination for it to be listed individually. In order to do that, you have to show there's some sort of significance to the building. It couldn't just be, a pretty building that needed help. We worked on the fact that it was a very architectural gem kind of stuck here in the middle of downtown Hayes. It's a very ambitious building that was done in 1877 that typically you wouldn't have seen anywhere in this area. It's Italianate architecture. The smooth beveled limestone was just something you didn't see. The arched windows, all of that back at that time frame was just an enormous project that Fred and Henry Kruger took on. They were actually engineering students from MIT, so they wanted to kind of, I guess, showcase what they could do. Part of the efforts when we started the individual nomination, the Historical Society had said, we had to see what was underneath that brick. We kept telling them that the limestone was under there and that there was just a slipcover put on. So shortly after acquiring it, that was one of the things. In the 50s was when the brick slipcover was put on. The dormers were taken off the mansard roof. We had to bring it back as much as we could to show the significance of the building. So we did remove the brick slipcover off of the limestone and was able to show that much of the architectural significance was still intact.
Our guest today from the Liberty Group, Kelli Hansen, and as you may know, we're downtown at the site of the location, which is right by the railroad tracks, obviously. And this time it's not a full train, so I think we'll just continue with Kelli, if we might, here on our Community Connection. An emphasis point I think that bears repeating, Kelli, is that once you got into the project here at the Opera House or the Kruger building, it was really going to be a terrifically expensive project, which would deplete funds from many other projects which the Liberty Group could undertake by just having to put so many resources into one building, if you will.
Correct. The initial estimates, and when we talked with our engineers and our preservation consultants about the building, they talked about the foundation, which obviously you can't even see, it's below street level. And one of the things they said was there's so much damage that, occurred over time, particularly, they even mentioned, the increased train traffic along the railroad corridor. That caused part of the, the deterioration that's occurred here recently, just because of the materials that they used back then. They had no intention of this building standing for 150, years. They put it together, the masonry, the bonding is just not what it was. So every little thing, the vibration from the train tracks has caused, some deterioration over time.
You mentioned architecture, and you brought a pice of architecture that we wanted to display here.
Sure.
Tell us what we're seeing, if you would,
This
Kelli.
is actually a corbel that was actually, there's a number of them, I'd say probably 20 some, that went along right underneath the third floor mansard roof. It just adorned the building. A lot of these artifacts we were able to extract from the buildings. Some of them will be on display at the Historical Society in various places around town, anybody that would like to make a display. We've tried to document as much stuff that we could from the building, because obviously, in a matter of, a couple of weeks it will be gone. But I think that everybody has done a really good job of trying to document either, the architectural features, just anything that we could to save a part of the history.
This piece would fit up against the roof.
Right, kind of where that wood is now. It's about that distance. It would just sit on there and kind of adorn the mansard roof. There were actually dormers that came out of the mansard roof, so the roof in itself was just a beautiful, beautiful roof on a building.
This is kind of a heavy piece. What's the composition of it, Kelli? Do you know?
It's solid wood, and obviously, been painted over time, but it's all, back then they did everything right. It is solid wood. Everything from the interior, which you'll see, the wood paneled ceilings on the first floor, the arched columns that separate and divide the first floor, the staircase, everything was first class when they did it, especially back in 1877.
Looks like several coats of paint have been added over the years, Kelli.
Yeah, I think it's probably what's holding it together at this point.
Tell me about, there was at one time a mention that there was a stage, but you didn't find that to be the case, that there was no stage actually for the performers. Am I right?
Yeah, and as Mary Ann kind of alluded to, as well as Henry, this building had so many uses over its life that they always referred to it as the Opera House, and you would have thought that you would have walked in and saw this stage or this performing center, and it really wasn't the case. This building was built more for economic development, and it was a resource to the community, but the second and the third floor was more of the areas that they would kind of, I guess, community gatherings would take place. So it was more of local traveling musicians just kind of coming together for a show, maybe more spur of the moment kind of thing. So it's obviously nothing like what we do today.
Kelli Hansen from the Liberty Group. We're downtown Hayes at the Opera House, or the Kruger Building, at the corner of 9th Street in Hayes for our Community Connection. Back to find out about the physical aspects of the building with Jesse Rohr coming up. Our Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Stay with us.
Every Sunday afternoon, NFL Red Zone takes you from game to game, live in HD. Every touchdown from every game. Go to NFL.com/RedZoneTV. Get in the zone. NFL Red Zone.
Every touchdown, every game, every Sunday afternoon. Get the NFL Red Zone for only $29.95 for this year's season. Call Eagle Communications at 877-61-EAGLE.
Welcome back to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching. We're visiting with the superintendent for the City of Hayes, the Building Inspection Department, Jesse Rohr. Jesse's going to give us some insights on the building itself. We're at the corner of 9th Street, downtown Hayes, at the site of the Opera House, as it's euphemistically known, or perhaps the Kruger Building, if you will, or many other different names throughout its history downtown Hayes. But probably by the time that you'll be seeing our Community Connection about the building, it may be gone, because the demolition is scheduled to start soon, Jesse.
That's right. There's a demolition contractor that was hired by the owners. They're coming in. They will be starting, the plan is to start next Monday. they'll initially be doing some mobilization, some minor handwork will occur at first. The building does directly abut or nearly abut some other buildings, so like I say, the contractor will definitely be using some caution in those areas, and that'll occur over the first couple days. After that, they'll come in with their big equipment, start removing the building. The expectation is that within that first week, the majority of the building should be on the ground. So they expect to be completely done with the project within 2 weeks of starting. And there will be some minor traffic interruptions at times, possibly. We will close the west leg of the intersection at 9th and Fort just for safety issues and to give the demolition contractor some room to work. Fort Street traffic will remain open. There are businesses on the south side of this building that do need access, so like I say, that flow will remain open at that point. So I think it's something no one's looking forward to, but we're at this point now, and unfortunately this is the next step in the process.
I think fair to say it's a necessity, quite frankly, Jesse.
Right, and as Henry and Kelly and some of them have spoken before me said, we've been monitoring this building now for several years, and it seems like in the past couple years that the deterioration has really gotten to the point where demolition is the only option. The two primary the structural points of the building, the most important, the roof and the foundation, have failed, and once you lose those two portions, there's really nothing left, and nothing left to hold up the remainder of the building. So,
as we have seen over the years, I think, as the building sat idle through the years, and then the deterioration suddenly became a situation where the city had to step in because of safety issues.
Right. We did step in and started working a little more closely with the owners. We worked heavily with the Liberty Group, as well as the State Historic Preservation Office in Topeka. Kept them in the loop of what was happening, where we were at in the process, and like I say, worked with the Liberty Group's time frame on this building. Like I say, we wanted to give them every opportunity to either save the building or, worst case scenario, demolish the building, and as they have said, that's where we're at now. So.
Well, Jesse, you along with the rest of us were able to take a cook's tour, if you will, inside, thanks to Kelly getting access to the building. What were your impressions on the inside from a building inspector's point of view?
Well, it's pretty obvious inside of the water infiltration that's occurred due to failure of the roof structure. Several areas of the ceiling have collapsed. There's plaster laying around. It's pretty obvious to all inside that there's been pigeons and cats and who knows what else inside the building as well. And like I say, once you get to that point on a building, unless there's some incredible funds available for restoration, it gets to the point where there's just no saving it. You pass the point of no return. So.
And outside, we've seen the limestone structure itself, if you will, be basically sound, I guess you could say, but along the foundation area and also along the facade on the front, there have been some real serious safety issues, have there not?
Yeah, there has been. Since we've really started this process, the building has deteriorated even further. Early in June, there were some of the limestone facade on the front side that had fallen to the sidewalk. That raised some immediate safety concerns for pedestrians or even passing vehicles, not knowing exactly how much would come down. So at that time, the city did come in and erect the safety barrier around the building just to keep pedestrians off the sidewalk. Once again, just a safety issue. And the deterioration continues today, unfortunately, and it's evident as you see the limestone particles and concrete particles around the sidewalk, around the perimeter of the building.
And Jesse, through the Building Inspection Department for the City of Hays, you'll be monitoring the demolition process on a continuing basis, I assume.
Right, and we will be doing that. We've been working with the contractor very closely. They have obtained all necessary licenses and permits and done all their work per KDHE requirements. There's a lot of steps involved in a demolition of such a building. We'll work with them when they're on site as well. We'll make sure all adjacent property owners are kept well informed. They've had personal visits already, and we'll definitely keep them in the loop through the process. And like I say, once the contractor starts, the process will be very quick. If you don't come by for a week or so, you're going to miss it all. So, but yeah, we'll continue to work, make sure traffic flows the way it should, and watch for the safety of the general public.
Jesse Rohr from the City of Hays, Superintendent from the Hays Building Inspection Department, and a part of history today on Community Connection. Once again, our thanks to producer Jeff Durall, and thanks to you for joining us on Community Connection from Eagle Community Television.